Hello, my name is Denniston. This is the segment 1 outline, and it starts out with what constitutes a science. We can never prove anything to be true, we merely disprove false explanations. Science is more of a journey rather than trying to find the ultimate truth. The scientific process first starts out with observing and measuring important events, looking for variables, devising experiments to disprove explanations, and lastly trying to relate these surviving hypotheses to form a theory. An observation is the careful noting and recording of events that occur over time. The descriptive method is making observations with the goal of accurately and impartially describing and cataloging behaviors without any attempt to influence them. Collecting data can be done through direct observation with the use of cameras, timers, machines, etc. You can also administer questionnaires, interviews, and standardized tests, or by examining historical records. Collecting data can take days or up to years. Naturalistic observation is the descriptive studies of a species in its natural environment. One advantage of this is the behavior is taking place in real life. However, there are some concerns, one being that the presence of an observer is affecting the behavior of the individual, and another is whether the people being observed and the environment they're in is truly representable of that species. Next up, a case study is a careful, intensive observation of one or a few individuals, typically people who display a particular behavior. Surveys are a means of gathering data about behavior by having people answer questions about their behavior, thoughts, or opinions. However, the disadvantage to surveys is that there may be a difference between what people report about their behavior and how they actually behave. We can measure how closely two variables vary together, and this is called covary when two variables vary together in a predictable fashion. Scatter plots are mainly used by researchers to see how individuals' results are scattered on a graph. A correlation coefficient is a quantitative statistical measure of how closely two variables fluctuate together. Pearson's correlation coefficient is used to measure how closely variables fluctuate, and is on a scale from -1 to +1. The stronger the correlations produce higher numbers for R, positive or negative. So if two variables correlate strongly and fluctuate together, they'll have either a plus or minus 1, and if the correlation is not very strong, it'll be around a 0.2. Just because two variables correlate does not mean one has any effect on the other. Spurious correlations, instances when two variables covary, not because there is any causal relationship between them, but because they are both being affected by some other variable. Confounding variable is a third factor that affects both variables of interest, causing them to covary, even though neither has any causal effect on the other. And that wraps up my segment.